Oh, good googly moogly. What is good, my fellow peasants? How you all doing? Yuffie's DLC, it came, it landed, and I've been watching this thing in each frame by frame, slow-mo, trying to pick out all the juicy details. And I was going to do top 30 like missed things in those DLCs. But as I started forming this list, I'm going to do one much better. I'm going straight into theory land, baby. Yeah, it's going to have a little bit of dream space, tinfoil hats engaged, because looking at this Yuffie's DLC, which I'm going to talk about the other stuff that came, Ever Crisis First Soldier, 2 mobile exclusive titles that Nomura is going to be leading, while Hamaguchi, who was the Division 5, I believe, new upstarter who joined the Square Enix Dream Team, he's actually going to be leading Yuffie's DLC part. And I'm kind of excited for that, simply because I think it was also Hamaguchi who suggested should Sephiroth show up at the end of Midgar, which was a very bold claim. Nomura thought it was crazy. Like, Nomura thought it was crazy. So Hamaguchi, he will happily ping off into complete insanity. And I think that's why we could be getting Weiss like appearing at the end. And that's the thing, with these crazy new elements introduced in the 7 Remake, what we have to remember is that Yuffie's episode is just after Cloud has fallen off the bridge. And the scene of Tifa saying, will he be all right? Like, it's situated then, so the plot ghosts, the whispers, the Kingdom Hearts bullshit, the Fate boys, they're still around, and I very much think that Yuffie, well, I mean, she definitely has a role to play in Fate and Destiny. Not saying that I want them to show up shitloads in these DLCs and like molest Yuffie, but I think it's important to remember that in terms of how this Yuffie in this DLC is being played, or at least being framed to us. Of course it's freaking Yuffie, so like, she's a troll, she makes up so much bullshit, like she gives herself fake titles and names. So like in the trailer when she says she's an special elite operative here on like official business from the new Wutai government, I think there's actually a good chance it might not just be Yuffie bollocks. And mostly because, well, for one, she's got connections with Avalanche. She's actually in the Avalanche headquarters, HQ. She's got this guy, Sonon, following her around now, who is also an Avalanche member, but very clearly at the same time, someone from Wutai. Very, very clearly. His poem, he's got like the bell, which is like symbolic of like Leviathan and the Dojo mountains, like the sacred mountains all around Wutai, and like it's rich cultural heritage, which we have to remember is kind of the most important thing to Yuffie. That's why she's in the story. She wants to restore Wutai to its former glory. Hates that her dad turned it into a cheesy like tourist resort. And her, yes, I'm gonna say it, her dream in OG FF7 was that she could go out, represent Wutai in official capacity to tell people that they weren't to be messed with. That's what she wanted her dad to do, to like stand up for Wutai. Be strong, regain independence, fight back against Shinra, and undo the surrender deal that they did in 001, I think it was. Wutai surrendered. And not that it's important, but it's got our Zack boy in it. The surrender actually happened after the attack of Fort Tamberlin, which was the fort that Angel and Zack infiltrated. They went on the mission because Genesis, he was supposed to go, but obviously he went missing in action. So Zack, unfortunately, is directly responsible for the surrender of Wutai. Something that we see the Wutai soldiers actually guilt trip Zack a lot over, and Zack kind of has like this little realization that he's done goofed morally here. And there's a little hint that like maybe one day in the future he would like help them. And now our Zacky boy is out there. Our Zacky boy may be connected with Stamp, who's connected with the other Avalanche members. One of them is the logo creator. The other cell of Avalanche, who are now so close with Wutai. And it's part of why I don't think Yuffie's bullshit. She's here officially because something has changed in FF7 Remake in the relationship between Wutai, Avalanche, and Shinra. That's why we have the entire scene with Jesse, where we go on Jesse's mission, and again, this is one of those sneaky little places Yuffie could have been. We showed up at that alt mission to find out about the blasting agent, something that was there to try to give like Jesse's soul peace. Like that was her life stream hang up, that she caused this explosion and was never able to figure it out. Well, I wrote this on Twitter, but it's crazy that Jesse kind of defied fate, or there was like a plot twist, again shown by a whisper that floated in the back of the bar when Jesse announced that Cloud wasn't coming on the mission. the thing that led him to go on Jesse's alt mission. And like Jesse at the end of it says, can you not tell the other guys about it? But I don't want to overcomplicate things. But like, thanks for coming. Ooh, that might not be much, but I kind of see it as like this double meaning of like, yeah, Square didn't want to overcomplicate the plot in allowing Jessie to follow out her vicarious dream from the original that is stored in the memory of the live stream. All memories recorded. OG is definitely recorded, and Aerith has the power to sometimes feed that to characters like she did with Red, or like characters can get like glimpse of it after like we destroy the ghosts. But even again, I think just subliminally getting it from their previous self, Wedge wanted to make a difference. He got to live a bit longer. We don't know how did he survive? The plate was coming down, the whispers were around him to stop him from like escaping. You know, they needed him to die, but somehow he wound up in deep ground, you know, before he then actually got to make a difference. He went up, got in contact with like Mayor Domino, the other cell of Avalanche, and helped the gang escape from the building. He made a difference. Oh God, poor Wedge. Trust me, this all ties into episode Yuffie. It all ties. I mean, especially as could it have even been Yuffie who freaking saved Wedge? Like, not only did she knock out the guard, like to get a bombing agent to break him, because yeah, I was thinking, what's Yuffie's motive for being here in Midgar? And other than just to like hook up with these Avalanche cell members and cause chaos. Well, when we looked at the fact that they then go into deep ground, her and Sonon, shown by the deep ground soldiers at the end. Like, could it have been Yuffie who saved Wedge? That's why Wedge was dumped at deep ground, as her and Sonon continue deeper. I don't know. I kind of had like this wild theory. It could have been Zack if like this was all like one big looping timeline. Zack was out there and he saved him. And like, then how did Biggs get off the pillar? And talking of the pillar, and this is Yuffie's main motive for coming to Midgar, is of course materia. I mean, it has to be. Everything that girl does is centered around the bright, shiny, magical, powerful balls. And we actually see B13 as the floor level. Basement 13, where if you're in the basement of the Shinra building, you're in the central pillar. The central pillar, an area that Nomura said we really didn't get to explore in like original FF7, and they wanted us to see more of. Well, here we are in this like amazing fucking hell scaffolding-y. Like, I definitely agree with what Maximilian do said. Like, it's kind of near automata-ish. Automata-ish. Yeah, that's it. And like B13 means that Scarlett's like hidden bunker, where she's trying to craft the ultimate materia, would be near the central pillar. So that's where I thought Yuffie could be breaking it. And then we got the synopsis, which more or less confirmed it. So the new Yuffie DLC episode will be 2 chapters long. Only 2 chapters. Wow. I mean, for just still a $60 price tag. I know you get all the PS5 stuff with it, which I'm going to talk about all that PS5 exclusivity and how I feel about that, along with Android exclusives. But 2 chapters. So if that's by FF7 Remake standards, what, 10-15 hours? Like, I did get the impression, just looking at this, that this was like episode Yuffie. So I was like, oh, this is like a bro episode Ignis or Gladiolus. It'd be about that kind of length and venture. But then I saw the price tag. So what's going on, Square? Are you ripping us off? I don't know how long this can be, so I can't really say. But yeah, this will focus on the Wutai Shinobi as they infiltrate Midgar and join forces with the main Avalanche branch to steal Shinra's company's ultimate materia. After the bombing of the Sector 5 reactor, Midgar is in a state of crisis. Amid the chaos, Yuffie go and try to nickel their shit. A young woman named Yuffie wears a Moogle cape and is joined by a reliable partner, Sonon. They aim to steal the ultimate materia developed by Shinra Company with the aid of the main Avalanche branch. They rush forth into enemy territory for the sake of their land and for revenge. Oh, now there's one more little line, but I'm going to leave this off. So you guys have heard me do this dream theory that all of OG exists in the live stream, recorded memory, getting access. They're all living their dreams and regrets. Well, when I saw episode Yuffie, I mean, it didn't clock to me at first in the morning, but there's a lot in this episode that seems super idealistic to every value that Yuffie wanted in OG. One of the main things, like even when we meet her, how do we get her in the group is if we just ignore her, or like she runs off, if we patronize her. She basically doesn't want to be seen as a kid. She's like, bow down to me. I am the great Yuffie. Kisaragi. Like, I'm a big deal here, and I'm here to exact vengeance as like the official hand of Wutai. Of course, she never was. Just a scrappy, annoying kid who like ran away from home. But now in this, if she ain't lying, she has a guard who calls her, and this might be an inside joke of some sort, we don't know about yet, but he calls her boss in the Japanese trailer senpai.
Boss!
And like, Yuffie gets to boss him around. He seems to respect her authority, and if there is indeed a new Wutai government, well, that really could explain why everything in the remake has been so mixed up, why the War of Wutai is flaring up way more, the propaganda is getting pushed, we had the entire television sequence. It's been hinted at so many like times, like Kyrie doing the announcements, Barrett constantly dealing with accusations of Avalanche being in bed with Wutai, which it seems they actually are, especially as we know Avalanche are providing material to Wutai now. So it does seem like in some capacity Wutai are preparing to be aggressors back, and that just didn't exist in OG. Like, Goddo would not go to war under any circumstances, and that's what Yuffie and her dad's like main breakup was about. That dynamic seems to have changed, and we even see it when like Shinra and a bunch of his goon bodyguards are walking towards an elevator, and Shinra asks Heidegger if there has been a response from Wutai, which Heidegger says there hasn't. And Shinra says, okay, well, we would have basically used anything they said against them anyway to fuel the war even further. So while it seems like Wutai are being like kind of aggressive back, it seems like they're still doing it under a veil. Like, they're not making it obvious, hence why they never responded. And actually, it could be just as likely that the Avalanche cell members that came to save us are all Wutai members, because Avalanche had a really big headquarters in Wutai. In fact, it was the main place for Avalanche all the way back to like before Crisis. Elf, Shears, Fajito. Even the way that Shinra goes about trying to end the war is repeatedly like forcing attacks onto the Avalanche headquarters over there to try and completely break like the core of the resistance and essentially end the war. And this is where things could get really dark. So introducing Sonon. Going into 7 Remake theory time. So I was perusing back through the compilation, which is going to be nice to play the Pocket Edition. I still can't believe that Pocket Edition actually going to cover the entire compilation. How? I don't know how. There's so much. Monthly updates, I suppose. But I was going back through to look at all the recent like throwdowns with Wutai, because Sonon says quite clearly in the trailer that he is on a hellbent mission to get revenge on Shinra. He says in the scene like they have to pay for what they've done, and Yuffie in the train, as the scanner's coming over, very cool, says, "I'm not your sister."
They deserve what's coming to them.
Yeah, they do, but I'm not your sister.
The slight look of sadness could be perceived as guilt, I don't know, on Yuffie's face. Makes me think that Sonon had a sister who is now dead, the source of his anger and vengeance or need for it. And perhaps this is the glue that sort of defines Sonon and Yuffie's relationship, because if Yuffie is getting hints that Sonon's treating her like his little sister, someone who's joining an anti-Shinra Avalanche Wutai group. So that's what I was thinking. Maybe his sister was part of the resistance. Well, shooting back through the Wutai War, this thing been raging since about 1992. That's when the war started. Yeah, I was born. The game is set in 007, so this is about 15 years before the start of the game. Shinra make an attack on Wutai. Why? Well, for every reason that Shinra ever attacks anything, they want to set up a Mako reactor. Dachau Mountains has a lot of livestream energy beneath it, the Sacred Mountains. And Shinra, they do not hold back. They send in their silver-haired boy. Sephiroth makes his debut on a battlefield at last. It's in that early wave of war that Elmira's husband dies and never comes back. Aerith knows he's dead. So there's a whole bloody nasty ass war during that period. We got the Fort Tambalan scene, again the one where Zack went there. These are the more in recent memories. Fort Tambalan was in 000. A lot of bloodshed happened there. I'm just thinking of where like Sonon's sister could have died, or what like his revenge plot for. So the attack on Fort Tambalan. If we go to 1999, this is the year that Song meets the legendary Turk. The legendary, literally his name is called Legend in Before Crisis. And this guy was so good at reaping Angus's and killing foos that he was dubbed the death god of the battlefield. Again, like the whole dynamic between Avalanche and the Turks, like the history of it is always mired in like betrayals, doubles and triple crossings. And yeah, this who used to be anti-Shinra Turk called Legend, he got betrayed by a weapons dealer of Avalanche. Double crossed him, didn't do it again though, because Legend blew him up sky high. But it kind of adds a little logic as to why Sonon would say that they have to take precautions when like Yuffie sees Cloud in the game first. I'm like, should we go say hello? And he's like, nah man, after what they've done, they're gonna have a lot of heat on them. We have to stay in the shadows for now, which could be leading Yuffie to doing all these little things behind the scenes, like she was in the backdrop the whole freaking time, but didn't come out to say hello because, again, of the mistrusts that can even happen between Avalanche cell members. Like the way Biggs spoke about those guys, like it was kind of like very otherly, like they're the extremists dressed up in military camo gear and they're the ones who have a more fucked up ideology. And this theme just works so throughout FF7, and I can see flavors of it in Yuffie's DLC. It's like this constant battle between like corruption and purity, or like the themes of it. Like we can have these different cells, like these different groups or organizations who like their motives can oscillate between being genuine and like being rooted in an actual cause, worthy of fighting, morally redeemable in some ways. Though no, that's what Tifa's here to like question all the time. I mean, we definitely go to Advent Children. Like we see the Turks actually help save the freaking world. But then the next moment we see them, or just prior to that, their actions were totally reprehensible. And it's the really cool dynamic that FF7 has always set up, that there's good and bad in Shinra, there's good and bad in Avalanche, there's good and bad in Wutai. And this is where I'm going to drop my main theory onto what I think could be the deal with Sonon's sister, or that they definitely should make this the motivating setup. Because, this is fraught with peril. So the only other attack, and in fact it's the most recent, that happened in Wutai. It was like an overshoot of aggression just after the end of the Wutai War. Wutai had surrendered, but Avalanche was still very much pressing the attack. They had their headquarters there in Wutai, and Elf, who she's such a cool character. She's like the lightning of FF7, super powerful. The only other person who could cross, other than Cloud, could cross a blade with Sephiroth and not get totally bukkaked, like super powerful. Daughter of freaking Veiled, head of the Turks. She's one of the leaders of Avalanche. Again, the quagmire relationship that happens between these two orgs. And in an attempt to finally crush the insurrection, Song gets sent to Avalanche. He lays a crap load of bombs all in the Avalanche headquarters, but suddenly Yuffie shows up. Very young Yuffie, not knowing he's a Turk and doing her usual Yuffie tings, which is nicking everything. She steals the bomb detonator from Song, runs off with it, and there's like this whole scene where she's going pressing stuff around like the secret chambers, because you know Wutai, you like press the secret door and like it pivots round. Like we see it in FF7 where we like go to chase her, and like Don Corneo shows up as well. And anyway, she's running around with the switch, and in meeting up with Shotgun, the main character you play in Before Crisis, Shotgun and Yuffie sort of team up for a little bit, and then suddenly Elf and numerous Wutai guards appear. Elf, the super freaking powerful enhanced soldier, almost on a level with Sephiroth. I said soldier, she wasn't actually a soldier, but she had a piece of material in her. I won't go into it, but I'm sure if Yuffie could have nicked it, she would. Anyway, Shotgun, just an average old Turk, somehow wins the fight against Elf and like these multiple Wutai guards, and even Shotgun is like, Nani? How did I survive that? I definitely shouldn't have been powerful enough. And then Yuffie accidentally detonates the building. Now, just like OG FF7 when like Jesse blew up the reactor, and we heard like a little bit like, some towns had got exploded, or it's a little bit larger than we thought. Like the original and Before Crisis, they don't really press the darkness of those scenarios that heavily. Like, we don't see the fallout of it anywhere near as heavily as say in 7 Remake, you know, when we walked out and there was the emergency services and people running around scared and injured, and like they really bring the weight of it. And the fact that Yuffie blew up this Avalanche building, costing, as it's even stressed in the game, many lives. I think that is like one of those dark things that could like creep out of Yuffie's woodwork in this particular DLC, but across the remake when all of these characters are like evolving on whole new levels. But yeah, what we find out after that Before Crisis, like the last attack that bloodshed in Wutai, is we then see Elf stood with Fajito and like Rufus, and she's not dead. How? They were using a glamour materia. They were regular Wutai insurgents, Wutai Avalanche insurgents, who got disguised as Elf, and those are the ones that Yuffie killed. Oh my god, make Sonon's sister the person who glamoured into Elf. Meaning that completely accidentally and not knowing she was doing, Yuffie killed Sonon's sister. Oh! Oh! Oh shit! Too dark. Too dark. I don't know, man. But I like the idea because it offers a opportunity to, while Yuffie will always be slapsticky and jokey and a comedy relief on the plot, one I would argue is very much needed. That's why I love Yuffie. I could still think we're seeing a much more mature, evolved, following on from the events of original FF7. Like Yuffie's character development is about to compound from scrappy half pint to someone who, because Sonon's plot armor is so goddamn thin. Like, I'm just gonna say it, I definitely think Sonon's gonna be dead by the end of this DLC, and this is going to push Yuffie of not only perhaps just answering for some dark crimes, but also to be facing a lot like darker shit, like the dark realities of the war, that from the time when she was a little kid, just like standing in front of Zack Fair saying, oh, I'll fight you back. Like just a naive child in the scenario of war. To like actually see the harsh realities of it now, and that to push her further. And one of those harsh realities could be, and I see it as no coincidence, that they have got Weiss and Deep Ground soldiers in it. So Deep Ground come flooding into the room. Yuffie's like, who the hell are these guys? Sonon and her put a few of them down. What's super dark about that, man, is that there was a specific unit of soldier created, Unit 14. Unit 14, they're the unit of specifically Deep Ground soldiers called the Lost Force, and they specialized in extracting viable Deep Ground candidates from the war, from the battlefield of war. In fact, it says secretly charged with recovering the injured from the battlefields of Wutai, returning them to Deep Ground, nursing some of them back to health, whereas others fall victim to torturous experiments, meaning that Yuffie, in that little Deep Ground scene, she could be killing some of her fellow countrymen. In fact, maybe all it would take in like this Yuffie DLC is to remove one of their helmets. I don't know, maybe Sonon fucking sees his sister or someone they recognize, someone that they loved or that they knew. I mean, hell, they could literally even put Elmira's husband like in there. There's some really screwed up like things with Deep Ground that could really come out of the woodwork in this DLC and be pretty freaking dark, especially when it comes to Weiss. Weiss, aka sexy freaking Hojo. This epically chiseled man with nips shaped by the gods themselves. He's about the most angsty angst lord there is. And of course, he appears at the end in the VR where Chadley sends us. Chadley, Hojo's AI assistant, who through data mining cloud was able to find some semblance of freedom. That was his dream. That was his ambition, something that didn't exist in original FF7. That had the worldwide network, a basically internet, fantasy internet of FF7. That was what Hojo uploaded himself to during the Sister Ray fight that we see in Dirge of Cerberus. Now it's Yuffie and Vincent who are the prime characters we see in the snow trying to stop Hojo, who, as we know in original FF7 when we get to the Sister Ray, injects himself with Genova cells and turns into like Professor Putricide. Professor Putricide, shit, that's a World of Warcraft boss. Anyone know who Professor Putricide is? Something that in Dirge of Cerberus later, again, with Vincent and Yuffie, because Dirge of Cerberus was very much like a Yuffie-centric edition that added a lot to her character development. And it's pretty crazy in where it kind of like, even on Hojo's side, confirms like the spiritual themes that are in FF7. When I'm talking about like the soul, man, talk about like the soul. He says in Dirge of Cerberus that what he didn't account for when he injected himself with those Genova cells is that Genova would try to, quote, take over his mind and eat away at his soul. Yet again, another theme of like purity and corruption, and that very much ties into like how Hojo and Vincent are rivals. Hojo is darkness manifest, like chaos, born of terror corrupt. And Hojo tells us that's what makes him corrupt, that's what makes him chaos, the counterpart to Omega. Omega being a planetary weapon that is only brought about via purity, because again the live stream only responds to those of pure intentions, and pure souls, those who have not fallen to regret and hatred, etc., etc. So the way, trust me, this all comes full circle. The way that Hojo, possessing Weiss's body, becomes Omega is he actually has to use pure innocent souls. It's all pure live stream, and that's how Hojo then becomes Weiss, Omega Weiss, and reveals to us that his plan is pretty much on the same level as Sephiroth, like his ambitions to be ruler of the planet, to travel through the cosmos to the stars as like the ultimate being. Like, yeah, Hojo is no different to Sephiroth in terms of ambition. And that's why I don't see it as any coincidence that we now have Weiss appearing to us at the end of this DLC, sat on what looks like, someone said it would be placeholder, but come on, of all the chairs you'd freaking placeholder, you wouldn't do this one. He's on President Shinra's chair, or now Rufus's. From like he sat there, talking about letting the hunt begin. Now, this is why I immediately think that we're not dealing with Weiss, the agent brought back by Genesis. That's kind of what I thought. Oh my god, are we somehow through the live stream picking up on where we left off with like Genesis picking up Weiss's body? We got much more to do, brother. I don't think it's that. I think because he's in the simulator, I think it could be like Chadley doing that because he's connected to, again, Hojo's like database. Weiss is like his main program. So that's how like Data Weiss could be coming through, like channeled through the live stream, because again, the whole thing that the VR environment in FF7 can connect to the live stream. Again, the VR segment where Cloud sees Sephiroth and we have that crazy ass apocalypse ending, like the meteor coming down. Like the VR can show things that are actually in the live stream. And Weiss could definitely be one of those things. And I'm going to take you one step further. What if Chadley is actually Weiss? Like Chadley uses some data to actually evolve himself or upgrade himself, or Hojo's AI becomes AI Weiss, and like when suddenly takes on that form, that'd be pretty crazy. I'd love to smack Chadley, yeah. Yes, please. and the reason why he's showing up at the end of Yuffie's DLC is, well, in Dirge of Cerberus, the two people who faced off against Weiss was Yuffie and Vincent. And something really important that across this timeline-y fate, re-happening, new crazy-ass plot device that Square Enix have set up, is Yuffie could still be marked by what happened in the events of Dirge of Cerberus in this moment right now. That is not only spurring her to, again, act on her dreams from the original, or sort of like vicariously like manifest them to actually happen, but that she could actually become really integral in what I think will be the theme of part 2, which will be The Nightmare Begins. We're going to transition from dreams to nightmares. We're going to get Vincent in. His freaking theme is The Nightmare Begins. That theme plays in Nibelheim, where we're going to be visiting next. That is the thematic association with Nibelheim, the place where nightmares begin. And if you remember, when they fought off against Weiss, Nero, who is his brother, actually sent Yuffie into the darkness. Only character to have actually experienced Nero's oblivion, as he calls it. Again, born from Terra Corrupt. It is the essence of corruption itself, which Nero says can dissolve and absorb all things. And like you hear voices when like Yuffie goes into that space, and what was very clear to me is that this is Terra Corrupt. All things that can be absorbed is like the very essence of people's memory and soul from the stagnant stream itself. And he kind of like tortures Yuffie with like what I see as like her darkness, hinted by Nero then saying that some things remain, like he still had a piece of like the dark that he'd extracted from her. It takes Vincent flying in, like pulling her out. And all I'm just saying is that moment of like Yuffie being in oblivion and only Vincent, who is immune to the darkness, could go and save her, that maybe she have been like permanently marked and might give Yuffie some sort of advantage, leg up, some sort of way that she can aid Vincent in part 2 of the remake, which again, I said I think Aerith would be wholly unequipped because the fate of the planet's been destroyed. We're now moving into the grand illusory play of like Sephiroth's unreality, like his deceptions, his illusions, the way that can tie into like the play. Yeah, I had the golden saucer and themes of like falsehood like Cloud's backstory that continues and grows out from like this part of the game onwards. I feel like Yuffie could have a really unique spot in this big weave of whatever part 2 will be, like Yuffie and Vincent, nightmare walking duo. That's what I see happening, man. That's what I see. I mean, look at this intro. Like, Nero shat himself.
Even in a world where fear and despair reign over the heavens, you must never forget, where there is shadow, there is always light. That's right! Bask in my rays, evildoers! Feel the radiance of Wutai Super Ninja, Yuffie Kisaragi, back and ready for action!
My brother calls.
You're just like, no. Fuck this, I'm out. And the reason I think this could actually have some relevance to what's happening, even though I get the sense that they're sort of using Durger Cerberus a similar way they use like the Kids All Right or like Deep Ground. They could just be like tying these compilation stuffs in just for like the fun and the titillation of it with like no like real meaning. I know in the interview they said, oh, we added Weiss just because we were thinking like, oh man, who's as freaking powerful as Sephiroth, but isn't Sephiroth? Let's go with Weiss. And yeah, maybe they're bringing him for like that kind of vain two-dimensional reason, which would definitely suck ass, because it is in a sim. But the fact that they fight deep ground soldiers, the fact Yuffie's got her like Dirge of Cerberus Moogle cape, riding cape, rags, just scraggy rags with a Moogie on top. She's wearing that. I can kind of see this way that they could really tie in cool to represent all the themes and like growth of what Yuffie went through, which again, him saying hunt begins is another thing about the battle between corruption and purity. The hunt begins is Weiss's saying because he has the urge to destroy all corruption. So because that's how, again, Omega that can take humanity and the souls to another star, that's how it manifests, only if things are pure, hence how Hojo has to kill shitloads of innocents to actually summon it. And this breakthrough for Hojo, that does indeed allow him to become one of the most powerful beings in the whole freaking universe. It's because what he's learned is essentially what he was trying to extract from Aerith, which was rebirth power. That's even the reason why Weiss is called Weiss the Immaculate, Weiss being white in German. The Immaculate, that really ties in with the whole theme of like the Immaculate Conception, the Virgin Mary, which is the vision that we saw Minerva kind of represented by. In Crisis Core, the statue looked like the Virgin Mary. It represented a purity in Weiss that would allow him to become Omega. And that purity, it means no sins from the Father coming down. None of their crimes, none of their sins. And I've done that video theme before because that's huge in FF7. The whole reason why humans are humans in this game is because they were Cetra who abandoned their duty. In abandoning their duty, lost connection to the planet. And that passed down through the generations. That's why humans don't have the pure bloodline. The sins of the Father pass down in memory through the live stream. Oh god, it's also connected, man. But that's all I think Weiss's involvement will be, is just to kind of show Hojo's power grab, like goals and schemes are already in place. Now he was laughing maniacally at the end in the drum because of what Hojo had realized. All his research is taking him to figure out, or leading him to figure out the perfect powers of rebirth, which requires purity. Again, all the themes we've got of like destruction and darkness, black materia we've covered. That's Nero, that's Vincent. Them's be the dark boys, they're the black robed like Cetra, the Aerith drew on the wall. Then you've got the white ones, they're Aerith, white materia. Weiss, the freaking Immaculate, Omega from the planet. And those two main forces, they are judged constantly. The balance of the two is held by previously Minerva. Minerva, who is the power of retribution, she is the one who made Genesis her agent. Genesis who went and got Weiss's freaking body. So that's what like Weiss's purpose, I feel, is become. Like he was previously just a puppet, a pawn, who was created in an immaculate way, that he was granted new life. Like Nero said, my brother's about to have a new life breathed into him. I never thought I would see the powers of rebirth or be granted the knowledge of rebirth. But again, in classic Minerva fashion, it's always done in a savage, unkind, unaltruistic way. Again, this is why I think like Minerva is the old guard live stream goddess, like the medieval, had like the tough retribution aspect to her, and that humanity is moving from that more barbaric sorts of phase in its life, in like this rehappening of the remake being reopened by Sephiroth, pushing humanity to its higher evolution. And it's part of why Aerith broke destiny, is she's setting humanity on a whole new path, one in which every human being has to learn the errors of their ways, learn from their regrets, pursue their freaking dreams. I keep saying dreams, but they are so important, even in this Dirge of Cerberus. Because Shulk, when she synaptic net dives inside Omega, again, Omega is made of pure consciousness, pure souls, the memories of them are there. She was like, can I synaptic net drive into Omega because there's souls in there? She freaking does it. She finds Lucretia in there. Lucretia gives Shulk what Vincent needs to then be able to control chaos, like his resolution. Maybe it was the proto materia. Does she actually then put it back into place? I can't remember. But what I do remember is Shulk said, it's a good thing I didn't only just record her thoughts, but I also recorded her hopes and dreams. Shit, you fucking not. It's a line. It's like, that's how Durger Cerberus is saved at the end. Shulk, yes indeed, into Lucretia's consciousness and extracted two of the core things that are integral and to all these evolutions in FF7. And it's where I believe the whispers came from. They're a Dirge of Cerberus concept. We had Reeve early in the game say to Vincent, can you hear the wind like 1,000 screaming voices? Those were the whispers, man. And when you look at when Shulk then bursts out of Omega trying to get the proto materia to Vincent in the form of Lucretia, look at what's trying to grab her. Like these black tendril things are trying to prevent her from doing it. What are those? I think they kind of work like similar to how the whispers do, because Omega is brought by the planet. It's the planet, it's Minerva's will for humanity to be shipped off across the stars when shit on the planet gets too bad. Vincent stopped that, but only because Shulk did this, and what was trying to stop Shulk was fate itself trying to stop her in this scene. Like in retrospect, that is what it could be, because again, any changes to like that or any changes to the timeline is seen as a contamination that the whispers deal with, and Weiss is everything against contamination. Again, Hunt Begin comes from him saying in Dirge of Cerberus, it's pretty heavy, the time has come to cleanse this planet. The pure will be spared for the cause, while the tainted will be hunted down and exterminated. They shall be slashed, strangled and slaughtered, beaten, stabbed and crushed, garroted and impaled, shot and executed without mercy. The time has come to cleanse this world. Weiss. That's a Weiss quote for you. Holy shit, that's heavy. But he's kind of saying that from an agent of Minerva perspective, from a purity of life stream perspective, which yeah, like divine retribution is very much not out of Minerva's league. So seeing why Saturn Shin was thrown in this VR saying the hunt begins, this could be something huge on like a planetary level, like of that faction of Minerva of ideology coming through. I think it's more likely that this is like Hojo power grabbing and Chadley turned into sexy Hojo. But yeah, being that Yuffie's going to be facing off against him once more, again, are the plot ghosts going to intervene with Yuffie? Like, is she going to get flashes of the future to help her like the rest of the crew have had? Like, I'm really wondering how Yuffie's going to catch up to where the cast have been in part 2. Like, think about it. The crew have even passed through the Destiny portal. And we don't really know what's on the other side. That's another timeline. Just a looping causal effect timeline, a grandfather paradox. No. But like, does Yuffie follow them through the portal? Maybe. Like, I could really see like some whole dark shit about, I don't know, Yuffie maybe killing Sonon's sister, being responsible, being guilty. Sonon gets taken down as they're trying to break into Bunker 13, Scarlett's ultimate materia headquarters. They sneak around in places we'd been all throughout like part 1, like the Roche's mission, knocked out the guard. Maybe saved Wedge. Sonon dies. Yuffie then sort of like acquires, I guess, what she had a little bit of a more immature version of in OG. Like, she had a big mistrust and a bit of a hostility towards the group at the beginning. Like she even tries to maintain the facade the entire time. Like, even after the crew have saved the world, like she's like, You go and give me my materia then. We done here. We don't like she acts like she doesn't give a shit. And I think that hostile attitude could come in after like Sonon's died and it's gone into deep ground, killed some fellow Wutai soldiers, faced off against Weiss again, been remembered or reminded of like some of her future memories. And then sort of like follows the group from like behind the scenes and like crosses the portal with them like after they've got in. Maybe. I don't think it'd be a problem if we do end up like meeting a Yuffie on the other side, or even like a Vincent or a Sid on the other side, because we've got magic hand transfers from Aerith. Like, I always feel like Aerith's hand is holy, which is a connection straight into the live stream. Like, she could just basically like, boop, memory update, like, boop, like just catch people up on the plot when and where needed. It's a very convenient plot device, but it's very juicy for the future of this series. And yeah, I hope this theory is right, that the themes of like corruption and impurity are making their way in, because it kind of a little bit ties in with like Yuffie's main motivation is that her hometown has fallen to corruption of Shinra. Like, it's like to Yuffie, it's been corrupted, it's been ruined, it's been tainted, and she's trying to restore the purity of her culture of Wutai, trying to bring back its cultural heritage. Everything in FF7, from the black material, white material, Cloud to Sephiroth, is all about fighting the corruption of the planet, both within and without the live stream, to try to purify. That's what Aerith said her main goal and motivation for this entire remake was. She said she wanted to go back and warn Cloud because Sephiroth had corrupted too much shit. And I strongly believe that that fire that Yuffie has to like purify Wutai and restore it, I do believe that extends to her character as a whole for the whole planet. That's why she's the character who fights Weiss with Vincent. She's the one who we see this dynamic of going into oblivion and chaos and trying to retain yourself within it is played out. And most importantly, why, and this is the final line of that synopsis that they say, after they rush forth into enemy territory for the sake of their land and for revenge, guided by the calls of the planet, the gears of a new destiny begin to turn. Guided by the calls, so Yuffie, guided by the calls of the planet, the gears of a new destiny begin to turn. Man, I am so convinced of my FF7 dream theory, like this character development theory, like that they're all being pushed through elements that they previously had gone through in OG. It's like they've been updated from the things that they wanted to become or do or achieve or fight for in OG. It's like we're getting a jumping off point from that. It's like many of these characters, and Yuffie especially for this DLC, they're like being put in positions that would allow their character development to go even further. And I've just been getting that sense, and to see now guided by the calls of the planet. So there is a planetary influence having an effect on this story, and that explains so much why Yuffie is given her the title that she's given herself, why that she might be able to go much further in like picking up from the whole Dirge of Cerberus events and happenings, like the planet is pushing her back in those scenarios where she can develop onto her next Yuffie-ish self, which I can't wait to see. Last thing, I guess I made a shitload of points. What with the whole relationship between Avalanche and Wutai and how it can get quite tense and backstabby at times. I'm just going to say the original concept for Wutai, or like Yuffie's role in it, is she wasn't going to be princess of Wutai. She was just going to be a daughter of one of the most influential people in Wutai, and that it was actually going to be led by someone called Sasame, who was the 89th in line. They were going to lead with a high priestess called Izayoi, who was 15. You might recognize Izayoi. She was a ninja in FF4 After Years. Yeah, they were going to work together. And then a third character called Sarah. Yeah, Sarah. She was going to work with them as well, but it would turn out that she was trying to lead them astray the entire time. She was a spy for Shinra. And it would have all led originally into like a very precarious scenario. I don't know if this chick, this Avalanche chick, whoever she is, Queen from Type 0 looking mofo is. I'm just kidding. Is she from Shinra? Is she a spy? I'm just saying, because if it is, if that's how it turns out, you'll know that Square Enix read up on their Wikipedia page their original thoughts for Yuffie, and they were like, let's recycle that back in. But anyway, I am done. I have spoken for way too long on episode Yuffie, but those are places my head's been going, the things that they could like extract, and pull and add in. That while I absolutely don't think we will like see all of this like clearly shown to us in like a 2-chapter DLC, that's what it's going to be. I definitely think all those themes are present and that it's going to tie very integrally into the future of the planet, the nature of Yuffie's very soul of the fucking live stream. And all of it's going to tee Yuffie's character up to have the very unique position she has where she's the most intimate or personal with Vincent, the actual manifestation of like chaos. How the hell does that happen? How does a character like Yuffie, a chirpy, chibi, scrappy half-bite, how does she become the one who sort of therapizes and aids and works alongside one of the most traumatized human beings in all of freaking Gaia? But it's going to be cool to see. Let me know if any of my ramblings have spurred any thought ghouls in your brains, any ghoul or goblin, random little thoughts popping up into your brain cave. Let me know in the comment section below. And yes, I'm very much aware I'm going to have to try to get a PS5 by June for this. Oh, fuck, it sucks. I'm just going to very quickly say on this point that a lot of people like Square, you're so out of order for making this PS5 exclusive. And while I don't have a PS5 and I kind of want to be pissed at the same time, I think it is fair to say that the PS5 has been out a while now. And yes, while it sucks and none of us can actually, or very few of us can get our hands on it, I do think it's right that people who have invested in the PS5 actually have their purchase validated, and the fact that part 2 of the remake's gonna come on PS5 anyway, it's like, come on. I can't really sympathise with everyone who's kicking off like, oh, I bought the 7 Remake expecting to be able to play the entire 7 Remake, so I've already made me buy a new console. Man, we knew from the fucking start that this weren't all coming out on the goddamn PS4, so it's gonna have to happen anyway. I suppose it's just a little bit sooner with the episode, Yuffie, but anyway, that is my very quick thought on that. Thank you very much for watching. Comment, like, and subscribe. I'm so close to that 100k, and I'll see you on the next video. Kupo!